Zarella was the youngest child of the Mermaid Queen within the revered society of Azura'tai. Her allure was famed throughout the 7 rivers. She had radiant skin that glowed beneath the moon's embrace, flowing hair that tumbled like waves down her spine, resembling strands of midnight silk, and gaze as profound as the sea itself. Yet, what distinguished Zarella was her boundless inquisitiveness regarding the world beyond. The Yora River was off-limits to mortals. The waters held sanctity, infused with ancient enchantments and zealously safeguarded by merfolk. Any human who attempted to fish or even venture close to its depths would suffer inexplicable and dire repercussions. The inhabitants of Azura'tai revered and feared the river, always maintaining their distance. Zarella frequently lingered near the surface, particularly at night, when the land above lay tranquil and the stars scattered like luminous pearls across the heavens. Her voice was celestial, and she often sang under the moon, allowing her harmonies to drift along the water. One starlit evening, as she floated at the surface, singing in hushed tones, Zarella discerned voices. Alarmed, she swiftly dived into the depths, peering cautiously from behind a cluster of water lilies. To her surprise, a band of humans neared the riverbank. They were youthful and spirited, their laughter resonating across the waters. What astounded Zarella most was their absence of fear. They swam boldly, splashing and reveling as if the river posed no threat to them. "They aren't from Azura'tai," Zarella murmured, realizing that no villager would dare approach the river so casually. The humans lingered, their exuberance contagious. Zarella watched, her curiosity heightened. When they eventually departed, she felt an aching desire to understand them better. The following night, they reappeared. This time, their numbers had grown, and they wore matching attire, bright and unfamiliar clothing, unlike anything Zarella had ever beheld. They laughed, splashed, and even sang unfamiliar songs, so distinct from anything she had known. "They seem joyful," Zarella pondered, "not dangerous at all." Her captivation deepened with every visit. She keenly observed their interactions, their uninhibited nature enthralling her. Unlike the solemn environment of Azura'tai, where tradition and law governed existence, these humans appeared utterly free, live unrestrained. One night, after the humans had departed, Zarella emerged at the surface, fixating on the route they had followed. "I must learn who they are and from where they come," she resolved. "But how can I pursue them without being seen?" Her mother, the Mermaid Queen, had forever cautioned her about the perils of interacting with humans. "They are unpredictable," the Queen had warned, "and their world is unsafe for us." Yet Zarella's curiosity surged like an unstoppable tide. The following night, she ventured to the ancient grotto, home of the mermaid witches. "I need a potion," Zarella told the eldest witch, a sagacious and aged mermaid called Lily. Lily's gaze twinkled with intrigue. "What sort of potion, child?" "A potion to give me legs," Zarella murmured, "so I can walk among humans." Lily's face turned somber. "Do you realize the danger? If even a droplet of water touches your feet, you will revert to your true self." "I understand," Zarella replied firmly, "but I must witness their world." With a weary sigh, Lily prepared a glistening potion inside an oyster shell. "Drink this at the shore, and never let water touch you," she warned. Zarella expressed her gratitude and swam to the riverbank. With trembling fingers, she consumed the potion. Agonizing pain ripped through her as her tail divided, turning into 2 slender legs. Gasping, she dragged herself onto dry land, awestruck by her transformation. "I'm human," she whispered. Summoning courage, Zarella followed the trail the humans had taken. Her legs initially trembled, but she quickly mastered walking. Keeping her distance, she tracked them to an enormous compound crowded with more humans. Most were dressed alike, moving in synchronized rhythms. The place thrummed with life, laughter, and the resonance of music. She soon discovered it was called the NYSC camp, and its inhabitants were youth Corpers. Zarella's heart pounded with exhilaration. "So this is their world," she murmured. From afar, she studied their daily routines, mesmerized by their way of living. They marched collectively, spoke in peculiar yet captivating words, and played games that left them laughing. One afternoon, as Zarella concealed herself behind a tree, she overheard two Corpers conversing. "Did you hear about the river?" one of them asked. "Yeah," the other responded. "They claim it's haunted, but I think that's just an old tale. We've been swimming there for days, and nothing strange has happened." Zarella smirked silently. "Haunted, they say?" she mused. If only they knew. Days turned into weeks, and Zarella's visits became routine. She picked up their language by carefully listening and even echoed their greetings in hushed tones. Her desire to be among them intensified each day. One evening, as the NYSC Corpers arrived once more to swim, Zarella could no longer resist the urge. She had to get nearer to them, and this time she had devised a plan. Silently, she crept toward the riverbank as they played in the water. With their focus elsewhere, Zarella seized the moment to steal one of their outfits. It was a plain white uniform, identical to what they wore in camp, and with it, she could seamlessly merge with them. Her pulse quickened as she swiftly put on the human attire. Though the potion's magic still tingled in her legs, she felt awkward walking on solid ground. Yet, the thrill of discovery gave her the strength to move forward. Cautiously, she stepped away from the river, lowering her head to avoid unwanted attention. She had never ventured this close to their domain before, this camp full of vibrant, young humans. The site contained rows of tents, small wooden lodgings, and laughter echoed all around. Zarella strolled carefully, observing everything, trying to mimic the others. Her heartbeat pounded in her chest, knowing that being caught could have grave consequences. Yet no matter how hard she tried to blend in, her beauty was impossible to conceal. Her flawless complexion and impossibly long, silk-like hair shone like a beacon in the crowd. She overheard murmurs and hushed whispers as she walked past, their gazes locked onto her. "Who's that?" someone murmured. "Is she a new Corper?" Zarella's stomach tightened with unease. She knew they would question her, perhaps too many questions. Just as the anxiety of being exposed weighed on her, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Excuse me," a young woman said, stepping into Zarella's path. Her name tag read Felicia. Zarella stiffened, her breath hitching in her chest. Felicia beamed warmly, as if unaware of the tension surrounding them. "Your hair," she remarked, eyes wide with admiration. "Is it real?" Zarella hesitated, unsure how to reply. No one had ever asked her such a thing before. "Yes," she faltered, striving to sound natural. "It's real." Felicia's eyes grew even wider, and soon a small group formed around them. "Oh my gosh," one girl gasped. "Your skin is flawless. And your hair, it's so stunning, like something out of a fairy tale." Zarella, still uncertain of how to react, felt her nerves intensify as their astonishment grew. She tried to go unnoticed, but her distinct features only attracted more curiosity. Before long, everyone wanted to meet her, eager to touch her hair and admire her skin. "Are you really a Corper?" another voice questioned, a young man just as intrigued as the others. Felicia laughed, her eyes gleaming with excitement. She must be. I've never met anyone quite like her. You're definitely the most gorgeous Corper we've ever had. Zarella was stunned. These humans, the very ones her mother had warned her about, did not match the ominous descriptions she had always heard. Her mother's warnings echoed in her head, portraying them as ruthless and deceitful. Yet, they weren't fearful or hostile toward her. They were enchanted by her, but in a way that made her feel welcomed rather than unsafe. "I didn't expect this," Zarella thought, a mix of wonder and disbelief washing over her. Her mother had always described humans as threats, as beings capable of harming mermaids, and she had accepted that as truth. But now, standing among them, she found them smiling, asking about her, and treating her as if she belonged. "This feels so different," Zarella mused. "Why are they so kind? Why isn't anyone trying to hurt me?" Felicia stepped closer, her curiosity evident. "What's your name?" she inquired. I'm Zarella," she answered softly, still debating how much to share. "Zarella," Felicia echoed with a grin, savoring the name. "Well, Zarella, welcome to camp. You're going to be a sensation here. The moment I saw you, I knew you were extraordinary." As time passed, Zarella continued to return to the camp, blending in among the humans. The news of the stunning new Corper spread like wildfire across the camp, and soon everyone knew her name. People paused to talk to her, to learn about her, and to admire her striking looks. Even though she sometimes felt out of place, Zarella found herself relishing the attention. She had never known anything like this before. She had always been a child of the river, hidden beneath the waters, separated from the human world by unspoken laws and fears. But here among the humans she felt noticed, as though for the first time she wasn't unseen. "Felicia, tell me more about this place," Zarella asked one evening while they sat near the campfire, its warm glow flickering over their faces. Felicia grinned, clearly delighted to have such an eager listener. "Well, this camp is for everyone who comes to serve the nation, during the National Youth Service. We're here for a year, doing different jobs and working in various places. Some of us teach, some do community work, and others learn new skills. It's a time for us to develop and contribute." Zarella listened with deep interest, intrigued by the idea of such an organized and meaningful way of life. She never knew humans followed such structured paths, filled with duties, ambitions, and responsibilities. The humans in Azura'tai had always seemed distant and peculiar to her, but now she viewed them in a whole new way. Weeks passed, and Zarella's existence slowly became woven into the daily life of the camp. She adapted to their traditions, their ways of speaking, and their activities. They taught her songs, dances, and games. She became close to Felicia and the others, and for the first time, she experienced a sense of belonging beyond the river. But there was something unmistakably extraordinary about Zarella. During the games, she moved with an agility and strength that left everyone stunned. Her motions were seamless and powerful, as though she was connected to something far beyond human ability. She played against the boys, and without fail, her team always claimed victory. Zarella's stamina was unmatched, her energy unrivaled, and it all seemed effortlessly. She outpaced others, winning races in a flash and even outmuscling the men in strength challenges, lifting heavy objects with ease. It wasn't just that she excelled, she was extraordinary, and this didn't go unnoticed. The male corps members began to take note, their pride wounded by Zarella's undeniable abilities. At first they laughed it off, but as days passed, her victories stacked up, and so did their frustration. "How is she doing this?" one grumbled after Zarella effortlessly carried a barrel that had required 3 men to lift. "She's not even breaking a sweat. She's probably been training her whole life for this," another said dismissively, but deep down they couldn't shake the suspicion that something more lay behind Zarella's victories. She was too perfect, too strong, and didn't look like someone who had undergone years of rigorous training. Among them, Tay was the most frustrated. A competitive sportsman known for his pride, he found it hard to accept being bested by a woman, especially one who seemed so delicate. He had dominated every competition for years, yet Zarella's victories stung, awakening a feeling he couldn't quite place. After another defeat in a tug-of-war contest, where Zarella practically dragged an entire team across the finish line, Tay grew increasingly suspicious. His pride was bruised, and he wasn't willing to ignore it. There had to be an explanation for her incredible strength, and he was determined to uncover it. "She's hiding something," Tay muttered, watching Zarella laugh and chat with Felicia after yet another triumph. His mind raced with possibilities. Was she using performance-enhancing drugs? Or was there a secret training regimen she wasn't revealing? The thought gnawed at him. The next day, he decided to follow her. He waited until evening when Zarella usually slipped away to be alone. She had always been somewhat elusive, and Tay had noticed her frequent disappearances after daily activities. He suspected she was concealing something, perhaps her training, perhaps something even more mysterious. John trailed her quietly, ensuring she kept a safe distance. She observed as Zarella moved toward the edge of the camp, making her way toward the forest. Her heart pounded with anticipation, eager to uncover what Zarella was hiding. Zarella didn't seem to notice her as she walked deeper into the woods. The trees became denser, and soon the sounds of the camp faded into the background. Zarella halted at a small clearing, her back facing John. For a moment, he debated turning back, but his competitive spirit, fueled by the sting of defeat, drove him forward. He watched as Zarella stepped closer to the river, her movements elegant and serene. With great care, she removed her clothes, folding them neatly with an unusual grace before tucking them beneath a bush. John held his breath as she stepped into the water. The moment her feet touched the surface, something astonishing happened. Zarella's legs shimmered, and in an instant, they morphed into a fishtail. John's eyes widened in utter disbelief, his mouth going dry as he struggled to comprehend the sight before him. His hand instinctively reached for his phone, but he froze, paralyzed by a mix of shock and awe, unable to react. Before he could recover and start recording, Zarella submerged into the water. She moved with such incredible speed and grace that she was gone within seconds, disappearing into the river's depths. John remained rooted in place, staring at the rippling water in stunned silence. The moonlight shimmered on the surface where she had vanished, yet she did not reappear. He waited the entire night, hoping she would resurface, but the water remained still, as if it had swallowed her whole. As dawn broke, he reluctantly rose, to his feet, his body stiff from the cold air. The vision of Zarella's transformation, the sheer impossibility of what he had witnessed lingered in his mind. As he made his way back to camp, every step felt heavier than the last. A deep urge burned inside him to tell someone, anyone, about what he had just seen. Bursting into the camp, his breath came in quick, uneven gasps. "You won't believe what I just saw," he exclaimed, his voice filled with urgency, though a flicker of disbelief lingered in his own words. Felicia looked up from where she was sitting, her expression filled with curiosity. Campfire, an eyebrow lifted in curiosity. "What are you rambling about now, John?" she inquired, half grinning. "I saw Zarella," John gasped breathlessly. "I saw her. She's not normal. She's a mermaid." His voice grew louder with each word. The camp went quiet for a beat before everyone burst into laughter. "Oh, John, come on," one of the guys said, shaking his head. "This is getting ridiculous. First you whine about losing to her, and now you're saying she's a mermaid? Seriously, dude," another guy chuckled. "Are you just mad because she beat you and everything?" John's face reddened with frustration. "No, I swear I saw her. She transformed right in front of me. Her legs became a fishtail. It's the truth." Felicia stood up, her expression gentle but doubtful. "John, we get it. You've had a rough time losing to her. But we all saw how hard you worked in those competitions. Maybe your mind's playing tricks on you." John ran a hand through his hair, trying to steady himself. "I'm not making this up, Felicia. I swear, I saw it with my own eyes." But the harder he tried to convince them, the less they believed. They either laughed it off or chalked it up to his frustration over constantly losing to Zarella. To them, he was just being bitter, and soon enough, the conversation drifted back to their usual jokes and chatter. Annoyed, John refused to let it go. He needed proof. Over the next few days, he watched Zarella closely, looking for any hint of her transformation. He trailed her to the river, even hiding behind trees or bushes. But each time, he was too slow. Zarella had grown more careful, always managing to slip away before he could catch her. She seemed aware of his attempts to film her, becoming more wary and harder to track. One evening, he spotted her heading toward the river, but the moment he moved to follow, she appeared to sense him. Swiftly she turned, her gaze sharp and knowing. Without hesitation, she altered her path, vanishing into a dense patch of trees that blocked his view. John muttered a curse under his breath. How had she known? The next few days unfolded the same way. The same routine. Every time he thought he had her trapped, Zarella would vanish beyond reach, her movements blending seamlessly with the forest and river. Frustrated more than ever, John came up with a plan to reveal her secret. On one of their game days, when the entire camp gathered to compete, John secretly prepared a bucket of water. He had noticed Zarella always avoided water during events, clearly trying not to trigger her change. But this time, he would force it, making sure everyone witnessed the truth. The day of the games arrived, and the usual thrill buzzed through the air. Zarella dominated as always, easily outpacing the men, lifting weights that seemed far beyond her delicate build. The crowd cheered for her, captivated by her presence, unaware of the storm brewing inside John. As Zarella neared the finish line of a race, John saw his chance. With swift precision, he flung the bucket of water directly at her, aiming for her legs. The instant the water touched her, Zarella convulsed. She gasped and staggered, terror widening her eyes. Her skin shimmered momentarily as her legs began to shift. The transformation took hold. She collapsed, her fingers clawing at the dirt, writhing in agony as she screamed. The human form she had hidden so carefully shattered before them. A long, elegant mermaid tail started to emerge, twisting her body, painfully as the shift overwhelmed her. The camp exploded into chaos. The Corpers who once treated her kindly now recoiled in horror, their expressions frozen in fear. Some stood paralyzed by the sight, while others shrieked, yelling, "Witch! Witch!" before dashing for their weapons. A few bold men, gripped by panic, scrambled to arm themselves with cutlasses, sticks, and stones. The once joyful friends had transformed into a vengeful mob, chanting, "Kill the witch! Kill the witch!" Zarella's heart pounded with terror, her vision blurred by panic. Yet she could still hear the heavy footsteps drawing closer, the men's furious cries echoing in her ears, their faces twisted with rage. "Stay back!" She screamed, her voice raw and desperate, but it was drowned beneath their shouts. She tried to drag herself away, her tail flailing behind her, but the men surrounded her, closing in from all directions. "She's a witch!" one man yelled, raising a cutlass high above his head. "We must destroy this evil now." Zarella scrambled to flee, but the agony of her transformation left her drained, her body too weak to move quickly enough. She felt the fire in their eyes, the hatred burning in their hearts. Her entire body trembled, trapped between the world of humans and the depths of the river. The water coursed through her veins, but she was far from its protective embrace. "Please," Zarella choked, her voice shaking. "I'm not a witch! I'm not what you think!" But her desperate words fell on deaf ears. The men no longer saw Zarella, the kind and gentle girl who had laughed, played, and shared meals with them. In their eyes, she was a creature, an abomination that didn't belong, a danger they needed to eliminate. John stood apart, his heartbeat hammering in his chest, his stomach twisting with guilt. But his mind remained clouded by the need to be proven right. He had uncovered her secret. He had been the one to reveal her true identity. Yet as the mob moved in on Zarella, John's certainty began to crack. A sharp ache filled his chest as the truth dawned on him. This wasn't justice. This was cruelty. Felicia, who had been frozen in horror, finally stepped forward, her eyes widened in disbelief. She saw the fear in Zarella's expression, the terror in her trembling form, and her heart shattered. "Stop! Stop!" Felicia cried, rushing between Zarella and the men. "This is wrong! What are you doing?" The men faltered, their weapons still raised. But Felicia's voice rang with conviction. "This isn't a witch. This is Zarella. She has never harmed anyone." John finally forced his way through the crowd, his voice unsteady. But she's not human. She's a mermaid." Felicia turned toward him, her gaze burning with anger and betrayal. "And what, John? You thought it was right to expose her like this? To risk her life just to feed your pride?" She turned back to Zarella, who still lay on the ground, shaking in fear. Zarella's eyes locked onto hers, wide with terror. For a fleeting moment, Felicia saw the girl she had bonded with, the one who had shared laughter, the one who had led them to victory. She wasn't a beast. She was simply different. "Please," Felicia pleaded, turning to the others. "She hasn't done anything wrong. She's just like us, only unique. You have to let her go." But the fear gripping the crowd was overwhelming, and her words were ignored. The men advanced once more, their resolve unshaken. It seemed nothing would deter them. "Leave her alone." Felicia yelled, shoving past them. She knelt beside Zarella, shielding her with her own body. "You don't understand. You don't know her like I do." A tense silence settled over them. John felt an icy grip on his chest as he stared at Zarella, her eyes filled with sorrow and agony. The mob hesitated, their certainty wavering. As they watched Felicia's unwavering stance, something changed. The rage in their expressions slowly dimmed, replaced with uncertainty. At last, one man lowered his cutlass, his voice shaking. What do we do now?" Felicia rose to her feet, her tone firm yet imploring. "Let's stop and think before we make the worst mistake of our lives." A long pause followed, the tension suffocating. Zarella, drained and terrified, gazed at them with eyes full of anguish. Would they listen? Would they release her? Or would their fear consume them entirely? John stood frozen, unable to utter a word, his heart heavy with guilt. The weight of his actions came crashing down. Zarella had harmed no one. At last he spoke. "She's always been kind to us. I only wanted to prove she was winning unfairly, using unnatural abilities. But I don't think she means any harm." The realization struck him like a powerful wave. His envy and pride had blinded him, making him act recklessly. In doing so, he had endangered the only person who had never wronged him or anyone else. Zarella's body quivered, yet in her frightened eyes, a flicker of hope emerged. She had expected no mercy, let alone this act of kindness. John saw the terror in her gaze begin to fade, replaced by cautious relief as his words lingered. I think we should let her go," John murmured, his voice rough. "Let's take her back to where she belongs. And let her live in peace, never again interfering in human matters." His voice, now softer and laced with remorse, carried a tone of honesty. The group, still unsettled but slowly accepting reality, nodded in agreement. The mob's rage and fear melted away, giving way to a mix of shame and shock at how extreme their actions had been. One by one, the men let their weapons fall, the threat of violence fading. John, still crouched beside Zarella, carefully lifted her into his arms. She flinched slightly from the lingering pain of her transformation, but did not resist. Her tail, once full of energy and vibrant color, now appeared pale and weak as it trailed along the ground. He could feel her trembling, struggling under the weight of such exposure, such vulnerability. She was no longer the fearless mermaid who had entered their camp, but a being who had nearly been destroyed by those she had trusted. "Let's go," John murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His mind churned with turmoil, uncertain of how he could ever make amends for what he had done. But he knew this was the one right thing left. Felicia, standing nearby, reached out and gently placed a hand on Zarella's arm, offering quiet reassurance. "It's okay, Zarella. We'll take you home." The small group, now bound by a shared purpose to correct the wrongs of the day, moved toward the river. The others followed at a cautious distance, their steps slow but determined. They walked in silence, the gravity of the moment pressing down on them all. Even in her weakened state, Zarella's quiet strength shone through. She was no monster, only someone who longed to belong, just like anyone else. When they arrived at the riverbank, John carefully set Zarella down on the soft earth near the water's edge. The river, which had once been her haven, now seemed like her only escape from the cruelty of the world she had tried so hard to be part of. Her gaze, though tinged with sorrow, held gratitude as she looked at each of them. At John, who had carried her despite everything, and at Felicia, who had defended her when no one else dared. "I'm sorry, Zarella," John whispered, voice trembling. "I never should have—" Zarella gently cut him off, her tone soft yet firm. "You didn't understand. None of you did. I hold no resentment." Her simple words pierced through him, sharper than any blade. How could she not blame them after everything? How could she forgive him so easily? Felicia knelt beside her. You have nothing to regret. You were just being yourself. Zarella offered a faint, wistful smile, her deep blue eyes mirroring the sorrow of the moment. It's not on you. I've always known that the surface world isn't meant for those like me. But sometimes it's hard to stay unseen. John remained silent, uncertain how to answer. Yet he knew one thing beyond doubt. No matter what came next, Zarella would always be remembered. This day's lesson would stay with him forever. Never again would he let fear or envy cloud his judgment. Thank you for believing in me, Zarella murmured, her voice barely audible. Thank you for sparing me. We were terrified, Felicia admitted, her voice thick with feeling. But we realized you deserve peace as much as anyone. Zarella gave a slow nod. Tears. I hope you found the story enjoyable. If you did, be sure to hit the like button, share your thoughts on the lesson from this tale, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more captivating stories like this. Thank you.